So now I'd like to move to a practice. The practice that is designed to get you to read a text, a philosophical or religious text, such that you are not trying to totalize it, consume it, grasp it, but you are engaging in what I've been talking about here, following the through line and letting it draw you. You're not trying to be informed by the text, you're trying to be transformed by it. And you're trying to put the propositional in service of the non-propositional. What's this kind of reading called? Here's one book, got the name right on the title, Lectio Divina. Lectio Divina. Renewing the ancient practice of praying the scriptures. It's interesting that this is called praying the scriptures. Now, these two books are from a Christian perspective, and if you're a Christian, no offense, if I sometimes talk about it in non-Christian fashion, and if you're not a Christian, I also hope, no offense, if I use some of these Christian ideas to talk to people who are not going to pursue the Christian pathway. We're trying to be in this together in good faith. That's one of the presuppositions behind dialectic into dialogos. So this is a good book, Lectio Divina. This is this is a better book. Both books are good. I think this is a better book. This is called Sacred Reading, The Ancient Art of Lectio Divina. It's by Michael Casey. It's who is the author of a book called Toward God. Interesting language, eh? Toward. This is very good. If you want one of the classic texts introducing Lectio Divina, and I'm not quite sure how you would pronounce this, Guigo the second, Guido, I don't know how, The Ladder of Monks and 12 Meditations. This is sort of the original, there's a translation. This is the original presentation of Lectio Divina. There is good reason to believe, and I won't go into all the scholastic argument, that Lectio Divina predates its Christian use, that it was part of Neoplatonic practice, especially a Neoplatonic practice called Theurgia, which I'll talk a little bit about when we get into the Neoplatonic strand of dialectic into dialogos. I'm going to take you through how to do this, but one more book to recommend to you. Those books will tell you how to actually do the practice as a practice, as part of your ecology of practices. I recommend this book as well. Okay, Lectio Divina as Contemplative Pedagogy, Reappropriating Monastic Practice for the Humanities by Mary Keetor. This is about how to, once you've been practicing Lectio Divina, and you really understand it, how can you extend it into reading any text at length? Which I think is very important, because you want to have not only things that are working in your particular practice, but building frameworks around them so that they transfer to other domains of your life. We're going to talk about that later as a crucial feature of any set of practices. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to take, this is a translation of The Vision of God by Nicholas of Cusa, who we will have an episode about in this series. Definitely dialectic into dialogos. In some ways, the culmination of the whole thing. I'm going to tell you how you do it, right? How you would do it. So first of all, it's a good idea, right, to stick with, don't just flip between things. I used to recommend that initially for novices. I've changed my mind about that. I think it's a good idea to keep going through one book. Actually, I recommend 2 or 3 books, and I'll explain why in a second, but I'll do it first just with one book. So there's basically 4 stages. They're called Lectio, reading, meditatio, which is reflecting, meditating, Oratio, speaking, and contemplatio, contemplation. So let's go through this step by step. We're trying to change our orientation from consuming information to being drawn into transformation. Okay. So we're not going to try and read a whole bunch of the text and what does it say and what does it mean. Instead, right, in that normal way, I'm going to summarize it and take it. I'm going to disagree with it here. Okay. We're going to read a much smaller passage. And we're going to do engaged reading. We read it aloud. So we could pick a passage here, right? If I should say that the infinite is limited to a line, as when I speak of an infinite line, then the line is drawn unto the infinite. For a line ceases to be a line when it has no quantity nor end, and an infinite line is not a line, but a line at infinity is infinity. So you read it, and you try and find something that really grabs you. That's the Lectio. The Lectio, so I'm reading it with, I'm trying to get something that grabs me. Not in the intellectual sense of, I disagree with that, but it sort of echoes, it resonates with you. It's sort of, the way I like to put it is, that was kind of tasty. I want to go back. I want to savor that. So what I do is, as part of the as part of the Lectio, right, is I'll reread that one passage. I may even chant it, right? For a line ceases to be a line when it has no quantity nor end. An infinite line is not a line. An infinite line is not a line. An infinite line is not a line. What's he doing there? Especially because I've been talking about the through line. See what I did there? I made an association for something that was alive for me. I've been talking about the through line, and here's this line, and this line that goes to infinity is not a line. Oh, this is how it's speaking to me right now. That's really interesting. So I'll chant it a few times, let it really reverberate. Associations form in me. And then I move from the Lectio to the Meditatio. What I do is I imaginally engage with that. I let all those associations, they're still active in me, and then so I'm going to draw a line to infinity, and I'm even going to say it's the through line. And right, because if it goes to infinity, it's not a line. Because lines go from one point to another. But it is a line. But it's not a line. And it's like, whoa. And then I do Oratio. Nicholas, what are you trying to say to me? I try to talk to the author, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to mindsight him. What was his state of mind such that he could produce that text? I try to resonate with that. I try to get into his state of mind. Remember internalizing the sage, internalizing the adult? I'm internalizing Nicholas of Cusa. What's his perspective? It's bigger than mine. I'm trying to understand what was his mind state such that he could produce that. I want some sense of it. What's it like to be like that? To be able to really see that, to realize it. I play with that for a while, and I'm oriented towards his mind, almost presencing his perspective. Then when I get some sense of I'm starting to internalize it, then I move to the contemplatio. I open my eyes and I try to see the world as Nicholas would have seen it when he uttered that phrase. It's a good idea sometimes to have two texts. It's a good idea to have them from at least related traditions, because when you do it with one text, and you do it with the second text, not only do you have the Lectio Divina for each text, you get a Lectio Divina between them, like the third, and it makes the two of them sing even more, because they start talking to each other as much as they're talking to you, and then the whole thing takes on a powerful life of its own. And of course, that's one of the hallmark features of the emergence, the presencing, the appearing of Dialogos. As always, thank you very much for your time and attention.